This video was made possible through the gracious donations of your local patrons, and as always, from viewers like you. Thanks!
Alright, B. Good night.
Optimus,
Yeah, B.
do you think maybe you could read me a Stasis Time story?
Oh, alright. You earned it, little guy. This is the story of the 3 little minicons. Once upon a time, there were 3 minicons. One was a pacifist, another tried to get along with everyone, and the third one always looked at the Energon Cube half empty. One day, their leader came up to them and said, "Alright guys, I've got a special operation for you. Beachcomber, I want you to take this prototype processor and upgrade the detection grid."
You got it.
Windcharger, take this hyperspanner and go calibrate Teletrain 1's magnetic resonance imager. I'll get right on it. And Gears, you can, I don't know, restock Energon cubes or something.
Stupid waste of time. Can't even think of an actual job for me. Just decided to be busy.
Very good. Off you 3 go.
Stand.
Well, I'm off to upgrade the detection grid. Should be a piece of cake.
I'll be over here messing with magnets. Shouldn't take me too long. I hate the both of you.
And here we go with a 1, a 2, and a...
What are you doing, Beachcomber?
Oh, I'm just installing this processor into the detection grid. Should make them work faster, so Optimus says.
Well, I could use a new processor. Give it to me. I need it.
Not by the gears in my hefty best chest.
Well, then I'll huff, and I'll whine, and I'll complain your ear off.
Alright, just take the dang thing. Can I lend a hand?
Are you done already?
Actually, no. Huffer decided to pay me a visit and demanded the new chip. I couldn't say no.
Psh, you do stop being such a pushover. Huffer's harmless.
Windcharger, did you take the hyperspanner?
Yep, just calibrating the magnetic imager.
Well, I need this wrench for my kitties.
Yeah, well, no. You're not getting this by the rust in my musty gust dust.
Well, then I'll huff, and I'll whine, and I'll complain your ear off.
That's not gonna work, Huffer. Could you please stop? Come on, cut it out.
Oh, fine, just take the dang thing.
Gears, we're helping you.
I don't care, I don't want to do this thing anyway. Bunch of useless work, don't know why. Gears, I need...
And they never heard from old Huff again. Now sleep tight, Bumblebee.
But why didn't Huffer just...
I said good night. Why, hello, YouTube. Greetings from the Lazy Eyebrow to a review of a third-party toy, because it's been years since I've covered one of those. This is the review for MechFansToys Mechanic Studio Engineer. Toot toot! Engineer is MechFansToys, from here on referred to as MFT, as that's less of a mouthful, version of Huffer, a character who's oftentimes forgotten about when it comes to toys. A few third-party Masterpiece figures have come out. In fact, Bad Cube clearly had some affection for the character as they released not 1, but 2 of the Masterpiece scaled version. Meanwhile, on the classic side of things, our options were limited to... yeah. Not pretty. Thankfully, MFT have graced us with their offerings of a legend-sized whiner shortly before Magic Square gave us their iteration, and thank goodness, because man, did it ever fill a hole in our collections. I mean, like I mentioned, the Magic Square version does exist, but it's mainly scaled to be the legend-scaled figure for a legend-scaled crew, and that's fine, because he's a nice figure, but the MFT version here is exactly what we needed for our classics line, and man, what a truck mode they gave us. The original Huffer has a lot of its inspiration taken from a Volvo F88. This, on the other hand, yeah, so a lot of creative liberties were taken, and I'm kind of alright with that. I mean, it's a classics intended figure. When was the last time they ever got anything 100% accurate to the world war inspirations? This isn't exactly Masterpiece here. That aside, this is a really cool looking truck. It's short, it's compact, and okay, I'm not exactly crazy about the feet clearly being the feet. It is legend size, which means small, and honestly, at least it's not just Legends Prime and cosplay. I've made a personal touch to the figure, that being the small Autobot symbols on the sides of the cab. These were never placed here as far as I know. In fact, the only spot I could find on the G1 vehicle mode was a rub sign up top, and I didn't care for that all too much, so I decided to place them beneath the door windows on the side. I feel like it looks much better there, inaccurate as it may be. Something else I like, and this is more a compliment to Huffer's design in general, but I like the arms posing as exhaust pipes. That's a really clever design. And evidently the story writers thought so too, as the repaint of him is just straight up named pipes. Man, look at the pipes on that guy! Now what I don't get though is why the arms are clearly intended to be exhaust pipes, and yet there's molded exhaust pipes separate from the arms. Seems a little redundant, but you know, whatever, I guess. Also featured in the back are 2 fans for what I'm guessing is the designer's idea of a ventilation system. Maybe he thinks the truck needs a refrigeration unit. It's kind of weird. Regardless, I happily picked up the fans in chrome because I darn well could. So this being a cab over truck, the question does beg to be asked, can he haul Prime's trailer? I mean, he did in one episode, so if we were worth his salt, he should be able to, right? Now before we get into that, the first thing that catches my eye is, you guessed it, scale. And, well, no. If he were actually based on the Volvo, this would be atrocious. But if you think of this as a stylized 2-seater terminal tractor, also known as a shunt truck, spotter truck, spotting truck, yard dog, yard goat, yard horse, yard jockey, or mule, then it's still not great scaling. But hey, it's not terribly out of proportion. These trucks are intended for cargo yards, where they spend all day moving trailers around, sorting them for future transport. Think Thomas the Tank Engine pre-Annie and Clarabelle days, when he worked in the yard moving trucks and coaches around. So they are a bit smaller. They're definitely not intended for long hauling. So the size isn't terrible. Anyway, let's unhitch Prime here and scoot Huffer into position. So Engineer has this molded hole right on the truck bed that surprisingly fits the Technic pin, which fun fact happens to be just about 5mm, of the trailer I made it as Lego for Siege Prime, then moved to Studio Series Prime. And plugging it in here allows for this much of a turn radius. However, swapping out the Studio Series pin in favor of the 3-wide pin intended for Siege Prime, and here we get the full turn. Well, not full. You still can't fully jackknife the truck, but hey, we can still drift and race around with the other guys. For size comparison, Titan's Return B, Earthrise Cliff Jumper, G1 Ricochet, Siege Sideswipe, Earthrise Grapple, which, if we're going off the Volvo inspiration, that's a great scale. Studio Series Prime, and finally, the storage container he came with. More on that later, right after a quick commercial break.
The Transformers will return after these messages. We now return to the Transformers.
Welcome back. Transformation involves folding out the legs and closing up the side paneling, unclipping the thick pipes from the small pipes. I'm still mystified why this is a thing, but on we go. Moving the truck cab forward, folding the fake pipes inwards, and rotating around the wheel assembly while simultaneously making sure there's enough clearance for the arms to go by in the truck cab, because good grief, that is a tight fit. And Huffer. I'll admit, that wasn't the most intuitive experience I've ever been a part of. I mean, the legs are easy enough, but the whole circus act that is the upper half of the body isn't exactly enjoyable. However, the result? Oh yes, please. Far more than a cosplaying Legends Prime, this is the very embodiment of cartoon Huffer as a Legends figure. And it very much fits into the aesthetic of today as seen in the Hoist, Grapple, and Cliff Jumper reviews. They are clearly striving closer than ever to reach the original G1 designs without straying too far into copyrighted vehicle territory. Just don't tell Mitsubishi that they borrowed the story onto the Fuso. Which means that he can look perfectly G1 in robotic design and not stick out too far when compared to the likes of other figures that came out semi-recently, like Titan's Brawn and Combiner's Power Glide. I mean, I would love an updated Legends Brawn, but before I see that, can we get a better Legends Warpath than whatever this mess is? So let's talk accessories. Huffer comes with almost none. Mind you, he does come with an additional figure in this cargo container thing. This is supposed to be a knockoff or inspired or whatever you want to call it. It's based on Diaclone. These are little mech suits that apparently came out first for a little while before Takara realized that the car robots were proven to be more popular, and then Hasbro got involved, expanded upon the car robots, combined 3 separate lines of transforming objects, made a comic, made a TV show, and here we are today, the Diaclone mech suits being a bit of a footnote to the Transformers line. That extremely abbreviated history was probably inaccurate in some form or another, and I'm probably going to get someone in the comments say, oh, hey, look, there's one already. That being said, I bought this figure, and for that matter, I also bought the MFT gears, not for these little mech suits, and as such, they've stayed in the boxes they came in. But pulling it out for the sake of this review, Man, it really feels like we bought a Diaclone figure and Huffer and Gears are the tag-along bonus figures. Like, perfect example. Here's the accessories that came out of both boxes. Gears got 2 blaster, but so did this little mech. Huffer gets 1 welding attachment. Meanwhile, the mech got 2 claw arms and a blaster. The welding attachment of which sort of feels more like an afterthought than the main accessory, seeing all the goodies that the Diaclone came with. That just pops into his hands like it's supposed to replace the hand as a dedicated extension. Meanwhile, the Diaclone guy gets an underslung claw and a 3mm connection system, an actual dedicated welding arm, not to mention 3mm ports in the back for storage of the second claw and a blaster, and it's the same story with the Diaclone figure for Gears. It gets a dedicated blaster arm, mounting blasters that peg into his knees or his back, among a swath of other playability options. Meanwhile, Huffer gets to look at his hand while he gets to watch everyone else take on the Decepticons.
Are you gonna help?
What? You want me to weld them to death? I mean, it's not the end of the world, I guess. You can help in converting old Jetfire to the winning side. Repair Teletran 1. Weld one of Wheeljack's neutron bombs to the outside of the Nemesis. Lots of playability options with a welding torch. I mean, given enough metal, I'm sure he could fabricate anything. His Poseability includes a stupid stiff neck joint. It's a right pain to animate. Ball-jointed shoulders that only go out so far. My favorite elbows, the ball-jointed ones. The crotch flap opens to allow more leg movement, coupled with the 180-degree knee bend that allows for some kneeling poses, which is always pretty neat. But again, all of that I feel gets upstaged by the better figure in the box, the Diaclone figure. His articulation features a hinge that moves forward and backward in the shoulder, on top of the shoulder ball joint, an actual elbow joint with the rotation responsibility given to the shoulder, wrist rotation, ball-jointed hips, knee bend, upper ankle movement, and the ball-jointed lower ankle. And that doesn't even account for the fact that the cockpit can open and fit a 1/64 scale human. Even that fact alone kind of wowed me. Which means that this robot scales correctly with every single Hot Wheels you have in your house. Fancy that. But back to range of movement, that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times 2 minus 1, 15 points of just humanoid movement, let alone the extra transformation mech bits. And we can compare that to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 2 plus 1, 11 points in Huffer. Why? Why does Huffer feel like the cobbled together afterthought compared to the incredible Diaclone guy? And it's not like they haven't made good figures. Their tracks and sideswipe in this size were awesome. Gears isn't this bad, but even he gets overshadowed by Diaclone. It just makes for some really awkward movement. Like, check out this clunky walk cycle. This took me 45 minutes. This took me 20. And look how much smoother it is. It's just such a testament to how amazing Mr. Diaclone moves, which is actually sort of, well, annoying. I spent $40 on this package Canadian because I wanted specifically Huffer, and it feels like at least half of my cash money went to a better figure that I wasn't looking for. He's not the figure I needed, but the one I deserved apparently. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Huffer. He definitely looks the part. He has about as much articulation as you'd find on Titan's Bumblebee or Windcharger. I mean, he's legend size, so it's not like I was expecting an amazingly articulated figure. At least, I wasn't until Cliffjumper showed us a new standard. But that's considered deluxe, so I mean, that's kind of its own ballpark. Basically, I got him because this looks and feels like Huffer. He's properly sized, he fits well on a shelf, and to some extent animates decently enough, which is a lot more than I can say for that Warpath down there. Sheesh, what a mess. Anyway, here's how he looks with some Season 1 Deluxes, some Season 2 Deluxes, and some Voyager class figures from both seasons. Basically, he looks great and is properly sized. That's why I bought it. I don't regret the purchase. But I'll admit, the review of the Diaclone figure has left me feeling like Huffer got robbed. Which is a real shame. He's not a terrible figure by any means, and Mr. Diaclone is an incredible figure. I'm not trying to downplay that. Basically, if you're into a really well-detailed and articulated minifigure with a bonus Huffer that looks and feels and sizes correctly, then it's a great purchase. In fact, I might even include Mr. Diaclone in a feature video at some point, as he's just been that fun to animate. But if you just want Huffer alone, it's kind of hard to recommend this guy. Basically, that's on your personal circumstances. If you have the disposable income to afford this figure and you're mainly collecting the Uniclaceration scale, then go for it. Otherwise, there are much better figures of other characters out there, and they're in Earthrise. Go for those budget masterpieces. But if you're looking for that one Huffer for your collection, I think the answer's pretty clear. What do you think, Cardboard?
I think Mechanic Studios' Huffer might just be better in its own way. It is certainly the cutest version of all the Huffers that I've seen on the market. It's bright, simple, small, and it's just a good all-around Legends toy. And that silver paint? Dang. I think it bridges the gap between consumer toy and collector toy. It may just be the best overall Huffer toy out there.
And, well, yeah, that about sums up this whole video. This has been the Lazy Eyebrow.
Wait a minute. Don't you have their version of Gears as well?
Wait a minute, don't you have your own channel?
Yeah, but what does that have to do with...